Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. It is so good to have you here. If this is your first time here, a very big welcome to you. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. My name is Gemma Lonsdale. I am a prophet, a speaker, an author, and I have a prophetic message to share with you today in regards to political systems all over the world, but also a specific message in regards to the US as well. Now, God shared this with me yesterday. I haven't had a chance to record it. This is my first opportunity, so I'm recording it today and I'm going to edit it and get it out and post it on YouTube today as well. So you're going to see this all in the same day from me. So let's have a look at the US first of all. Whenever I am being brought to the US, we're looking at the leadership team, the politics and the political leadership. What I'm really being shown here, and I know that there is some discord there anyway, I'm really being shown a fracture, a really significant division of some kind. And I don't know exactly how this is going to come about. I'm not being given the detail of what is going to trigger this and what's going to lead to it. I'm being shown an image of people going from singing from the same hymn sheet to all of a sudden, like, we're not on the same page here. So there's something really significant that is on the cards there. This all does serve a divine purpose, and actually it's a really important thing that I want to touch on here with you. I've just seen another comment from someone on a YouTube video where they'd questioned God's timing. Why has he not done something sooner? Why has he left it so long? And I wanted to address that first of all, because actually God's timing is impeccable. Like, God doesn't make mistakes with timing. Nothing happens later than it should. Nothing happens earlier than it should. The timing is always perfect. The challenge is for us, whenever we're seeing the strife within the world, the challenges, the obstacles, the bad things that might be happening to people, it can make it feel like God isn't there, God isn't listening. But sometimes we have to see those things happen. We have to sometimes experience those things in order to rise up, okay? So it all has a purpose. We may not understand it. We may not fully understand why things have had to happen the way that they have. But the timing, I can assure you, is always perfect. Okay, so that's my first thing that I just wanted to touch on there. Now, the other sort of prophecy that God had been talking to me about, and he was really giving me a glimpse into the future of how things are going to look for us and what is happening, okay? What is happening in the world, not just within politics, but within all of the leadership structures that we have and the institutions that we have, all of the things that have historically been there, okay? So the familiar things, including the church, okay? And I mean the church not as the body of people, I mean the institutions, okay? And I have talked about this a number of years ago as well. God is sending this big message of mass transformation. There is a big transformation that we are going through globally where the old structures are just not serving us anymore. We are being shown the old structures coming down right before our very eyes. So this is the corrupt politicians, the fat cats. These are all terms that he used with me whenever he was giving me the information. So the fat cats, the corrupt politicians, just incompetent leaders. All of the systems and procedures and the systems and the institutions that we have in place will be coming down bit by bit. Now, this is possibly going to be a gradual shift. Often change doesn't happen overnight. Things do need to be dismantled. Things need to be challenged. So we're going through a period of the old ways of doing things being challenged. We also have people who are familiar and comfortable with the old ways who are sort of challenging back because there is comfort within those institutions, or there is comfort within that structure. So there is an unraveling and an opening up of minds and a re-educating of people that is happening, okay? So what God is actually showing me is We're taking down the old. We're removing what is no longer working, what is no longer serving us as a society. And in its place, what he's actually putting in place of the old leaders, the ones that are going to be, embarrassed and humbled and taken out of their, their positions of power. We're going to see spiritual leaders, not religious, spiritual leaders starting to take their place. I actually talked about this a couple of years ago, I think, on a TikTok post where we will, if you think, Hollywood, for example, obviously hasn't been going as well as what it has in the past. So it is possibly one of those institutions that maybe is being impacted by this. But whenever we think of the stars within Hollywood, the pop stars that we have, the football stars, like we have a lot of people who are, even influencers who are, celebrities, and they're extremely well paid and they're, on pedestals, and not all of them are the sort of people that God wants us to be following, okay? Because they're not leading us towards something better. They're not leading us towards Him. They're not leading us towards a higher power or, a more spiritual way of living. They're not connecting us to the spirit world. I know that a lot of you won't use the term God and don't feel comfortable with that, and that is absolutely fine. Go with the label that you prefer, but He is wanting us to be led to something that is more spiritually connected. Not just that we're connected to the spirit world and we have an actual relationship with that world and with God, with the higher power, source, whatever label you want to attach to it, but that we have a deeper connection with ourselves and we're able to make our own discernments. We're able to trust in our own inner wisdom and our own inner knowledge, rather than being told by an institution or by a political leader that this is the way we do things around here, okay? We're being taken out of these boxes that we've been forced into for years, and we're being given freedom, we're being given wings, and we're being encouraged to flourish. And we're being encouraged to do things our way that is probably going to be a little bit different to the typical norms that we've experienced and societal expectations. But we're being encouraged to do it our way. So that's really what's happening at the moment. There's another thing that he was touching on as well, which I think is really important. And he was touching on the wealth divide. And again, this is something that I have spoke about in the past. Whenever I'm being shown the wealth divide, I'm seeing the super rich, the uber rich people where the money is sitting at the top. And then I am seeing a section of people here at the bottom that are struggling, that are in poverty, that are living paycheck to paycheck or are depending on government handouts in some way. And what he's showing me is this massive divide in between the two. And this has already started. He's just saying now, this has already started, but he is closing this divide. And the money is starting to trickle down. Now, again, he is saying that this is something that we need to have patience for, but it is happening. The rich are going to become less rich and less wealthy. The poor people are going to be becoming more wealthy and more rich, okay? So the wealth gap is being closed in. The wealth is being redistributed, okay? We're going to have that money spread out a little bit. I don't think there was anything else that I needed to touch upon. Just whenever we're on the subject of wealth, because I do see people, like I have been shown people having large amounts of wealth still, even the spiritual leaders, and I think this is really important as well because of some of the mindsets that exist. The spiritual leaders that I'm seeing rising up into positions of power and I suppose celebrity status, if you consider the Hollywood and the influencers and everything that I've mentioned there before, whenever I see them rise up, I do see wealth coming to them as well. I'm not seeing them living lives of poverty. God doesn't want any of us to live lives of poverty. So just because you're on a spiritual path doesn't mean that you can't be experiencing wealth and experiencing abundance. That is our right as people to be able to experience that if that's what we want and to be able to be open to receive it. Okay, so there is no shame in that. There is no harm in that. The one thing that God has really made it stand out here to me is that at the moment we have so many corrupt people that are in positions of power and in positions of mass wealth that are ego driven. I use ego a lot. I talk about ego a lot. They're not really leading with the light. They're not leading with their heart. They're not leading with humanitarian ideals. They're in a place where they're hoarding their money. They're being greedy with it. They're overindulging. They're not really putting it to purpose, to a good purpose. And whenever I see the new leaders rise up, some of them may even be in position already, but whenever I'm seeing the new leaders rise up, I'm seeing them being wealthy, but I'm seeing them using their wealth for good as well. They're not hoarding their money. They're using it to help society, and they're using it almost like if you can imagine having financial freedom. So you've got your big house, you've got your cars, you've got, everything that you need to live an abundant and comfortable life. Maybe you have the crash pad, on the California coast, and you have the house in the mountains, whatever you want. But the surplus money that you have, you're able to use it in a charitable way, and you're also able to have the freedom that you don't have to work, you don't have to do anything to make money, but you can actually go and put effort into the causes that you feel most drawn to. You can do your humanitarian work. You can fly off and spend the month in Africa building schools for, kids, or educating them on God, or whatever it might be that, is on your path. Everything becomes possible, and the world really starts to change. That is the vision that I'm being shown. And I know that we have these, shakings of wars and things like that. I'm not being shown that that's something that can be avoided. I always like to think that things can change, and we can change our mindset, we can change the direction. I'm being shown something that is too close. It's like the scales have already tipped, even though large scale war hasn't happened. The switch has already been flicked on that. It's like we're there, but we're just not seeing it. That's what I'm being shown energetically. And I'm seeing this visual of if you can imagine a seesaw, and it's like the seesaw has tipped, or if you can imagine like the scales, like an old set of weighing scales, the scales have already tipped, and then I've seen a light switch go on. So things have already happened energetically behind the scenes, even though we may not be seeing the full effect of it in the real world. As challenging as it might be for many of us to experience a war, and I know that a lot of you will have fear, and it's easy for me to say fear isn't going to serve you. It doesn't serve a purpose. It's not going to change things. It will have a detrimental impact to you overall, but I also know that it is something that it's hard for us to just switch off from, but you can change your mindset in order to retrain your thoughts towards something positive with that, and to be less fearful. Having the fear there is only going to make things worse, essentially, okay? But whenever I see things unfurling, yes, there's a lot of challenges and horrible things that come with that, with the thoughts of a war and with a war actually happening. But there are so many positive things that happen as well. It brings communities together. It helps people learn how to live in a new way. It enables the old structures to be dismantled. I'm not talking by literally, the bomb dropping on it and, the building collapsing. I'm meaning it opens the way for change. It paves the way for something new to be built, okay? So we're going through a transformation, and buildings and things like that will be demolished. And, we look at the Ukraine at the moment, and, obviously how much it's been impacted by the war it's been experiencing, and how much rebuilding has had to have been done, like many other parts of the world at the minute. But if you can think of that happening on an energetic level as well, on a soul level, we're dismantling the old structures, the old way of thinking, the old way of working, and something new is going to be able to take its place. I often use the analogy of whenever we're trying to make changes in our own life, or we're trying to change something, or God is trying to change something for the collective, for the world, if we bought a piece of land for ourselves, we bought 3 acres, it's got this lovely little cottage and some farm buildings there, but we bought that to build a mansion on with a swimming pool, and we wanted all of the fancy land and maybe some chickens at the side. My fantasy, I get it, not yours. So if we buy that, we can't just build the new mansion on top of this little rickety cottage that has been there for, decades and potentially centuries. We have to come in with the bulldozer, knock it all down, flatten the ground. We need to prepare the foundations for, this new big building to go up. We need to dig out the land for the swimming pool, and then the building work can commence. That is the exact same as what happens in our own lives and in the world whenever there is change like this that is happening on a higher level. Everything must go. The ground needs to be strengthened, the foundations need to be fortified, and something new will come in its place. Okay? So I hope that has really helped you. I am eager to see how things do come about with the US political system and what other changes do happen. But one thing I can guarantee you is that any disruption that is caused from these changes will be well worth it. Okay? Because something better is coming.